Hello, welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix. We're back again to review, discuss, watch, maybe argue about every horror movie on Netflix. Once again, I'm Chris, here again with Patrick.
That's Patrick Hello Zepp done to you.
Great new nickname. That's a Saw reference in case you missed us last week. And we also got Elizabeth.
Yep, that's me.
And Steven.
Here again, it's Steven. Here again. Here again.
You say again so much when you introduce the podcast every week.
And,
again.
You know, this week took us back to alphabetical order after last week's little diversion, and we're still in the A's, getting a little late down in the A's. Now we got Antibirth.
And we've been waiting for this movie for a while as a podcast, I think. I'm not sure why I've been waiting for it because I love Chloë Sevigny. Others, I think we've just sort of touted this as our first goal to get to, Antibirth.
It's got a great cover. It's a fantastic title. It's Chloë Sevigny. We should mention right at the outset, this is kind of a spiritual sequel to #horror. We've got Chloë Sevigny again reuniting with her real-life best friend, Natasha Lyonne.
They were in #horror together.
They were, briefly.
They live their lives together.
It's
apparently
distributed again by IFC Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Also distributed #horror.
Which I
have
have to
song, so they're batting 500.
In an earlier episode, I said IFC Midnight is where it's at with horror, and I kind of want to take that back.
They're great. They tweeted us, you know.
They did tweet us.
Oh, that's right. We have to tweet them for this cast. They said
let
tweet
us
us when we...
Let us know when you review one of our movies. So,
IFC Horror,
this will be our
reviewing.
third IFC Midnight movie that we've reviewed,
IFC
and we're
Midnight.
only in the A's.
But this is just our first since they tweeted at us, right?
Right. But good for them for putting all their movies at the beginning of the alphabet.
This is
Smart move.
this is so pathetic.
Unfortunately,
We get so excited when someone tweets at us.
Unfortunately, Kill List is in the K's and also not on Netflix.
Well, listen, everybody, I'm really excited about this movie because it is set in Michigan.
Oh, I got some opinions about that.
I do too.
And,
Yeah.
gentlemen,
I'm sorry.
eagerly
We don't
await
talk
your
over
opinion.
women on this
Don't- I
podcast.
don't mean-
No, we talk over everyone. There's no discrimination.
There's no discrimination. Everybody gets talked over.
Kill your buzz, so to speak. Continue.
Well, it's set in Michigan, and this is literally the best movie set in Michigan that I've ever seen. You can tell, as a native Michigander, this movie is pure Michigan.
Guess what? It was shot in Ontario.
But that
And
doesn't
the
matter.
plates are on the front of the car, and we don't do that here.
No, we do.
Do
No,
we?
we don't.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
When's the last time you
My
saw
mom's car has a plate on the front of it.
a
Well,
Michigan
that's a
plate?
Yes.
Vanity
It's
choice
not-
on your
yeah.
mom's part.
No, it's not. I mean, she has one on the back, too.
No.
I mean, you're
Does your mom have a vanity plate?
No, it says like GKX5465 or something.
That must mean something. She's proud of it.
Probably.
She's flaunting it.
Well, the point is you only have to have a plate on the back of your car in Michigan. People generally don't have plates on the front of their cars.
Okay.
Well, it's irrelevant.
Wow. You know, next time I say something on this cast, I'll think 4 times before I do it.
No, don't.
Good
don't.
idea.
That was just a detail I noticed. That was like how I found out this movie was supposed to be set in Michigan was like, oh, there's a car with a Michigan plate, but it's on the front of the car, and then we don't do
Dude,
that.
okay. No, it looks like Michigan. The people talk like Michigan. It feels like I feel like I know all the people in this movie.
Yeah.
The music, they use a lot of Detroit bands.
Yeah.
I
Well, no,
Well,
they do.
just one.
Two.
The
Nick
Gories.
Collins. Yeah, the
All right,
Gories.
let's
Gories.
explain what this movie's about, and then I'll explain you why the Michigan connection pissed me off.
That's true. I do want to get into the Michigan connection, but we should probably talk about what the movie's fucking about for sure.
It's if like Greg Araki or John Waters directed Absolutely Fabulous as a movie and set it in Michigan, this would be it. We've got two aging party girls, right, who find themselves in this sort of like grungy garage sort of setting where there's like literally like barrel fires going on, homeless people wandering around, and one of the girls gets a little too fucked up and has an encounter that is kind of obscure, but you sense that it's going to shape the way things happen going forward.
it seems like she gets knocked up.
It seems like it, but it's clearly not. Like, I thought that she was getting raped, but I was like, if she's actually getting raped right now, his dick has to be at least 12 inches long because he's like off to the side. Later, we find out what happened, and there's a whole lot of subplots and weird shit going on in this movie.
So basically, you have a woman who is
pregnant,
completely drug-addled, and pregnant, and dirt poor. And all her friends who are drug-addled and dirt poor and not pregnant. And she's wondering, how did I get pregnant? Am I pregnant?
And she says over and over, I would know if I had sex.
Yeah, she doesn't
she says
think
she
that
hasn't
she's...
fucked anyone.
Yeah.
She thinks
But she's also fucked up all the time.
Right.
And she seems like somewhat aware that, like, she knows that she wouldn't remember if
And
this
she
thing had happened.
continues to constantly abuse alcohol and drugs, even as she continues to become more visibly pregnant, because she says, I would know if I was actually knocked up.
To the point that she rubs her belly against a microwave and sparks fly out of it. And she's like, if there's a baby inside me, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to kill her right now.
It's going to have superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, playing fast and loose with the pregnancy, and basically the mystery that's hanging over our head is, how did she get pregnant, and what's she pregnant with? Is it a healthy baby boy, or is it something more sinister, because we're in the horror section?
It's more sinister. It's a healthy baby girl.
I was going to say, that was the implication in what Chris said there.
I mean, like,
Is it a healthy baby boy, or is it something more sinister?
removing the sort of, like, supernatural elements that come into play in this movie, like the idea of a woman who lives this kind of lifestyle getting pregnant and having a baby and denying it to the point that you know that she's going to eventually give birth, she's not going to have an abortion, is terrifying. Like, that is going to be a fucked up baby, because she is constantly, like, every scene she's like, let's go to the liquor store and get snacks and booze, and she's doing whippets in the in the convenience store. Like, even without the horror elements, like, this woman should not have a baby, and that kind of set me on edge.
That's horror in and of itself.
Yeah. Even without the conventional horror stuff, this movie's extremely disturbing and depressing just because of its gratuitous poverty porn, I would say.
Well, that's an interesting point. First of all, I think it's noteworthy that this woman, played by Natasha Lyonne, whose name is Lou in the movie,
Yes.
remains, honestly, frankly, cheerful at best and, like, pretty much carefree at worst throughout this. She seems to enjoy her life. Many people say, you need to take it easy, blah, blah. She's like, I don't really care, and she doesn't seem particularly concerned at all.
For a protagonist, she should be really unlikable, and she's written to be unlikable, but the performance that Natasha Lyonne gives is really charming. She knows exactly how fucked up she is. She has, like, these little wry witticisms that she throws in when people challenge her about her behavior. Yeah. I found her to be, like, oddly lovable. I kind of rooted for her.
She grew on me.
Weird way.
I did not like her at all at first, but she grew on me given my limited options in this movie.
I think I just appreciated her spunk and her general attitude. I just appreciated, despite her often reprehensible behavior.
Well, it brought to mind, I don't know, like Parker Posey, who's often played like the sort of bad. I mean, she's in the movie Party Girl, which is, I think, a direct analog to this movie, where she's like a person who makes a lot of bad decisions and is like, in that movie, Parker Posey's like trying to get her life together, and you kind of root for her. In this movie, it lacks that character arc, and somehow still I was interested to see this character go through her journey of like realizing, like, I need to grow the fuck up. I am pregnant.
I don't know if she went through that journey, but she was like she was attractive to me because she was like kind of defiant of, like, she has nothing going on in her life that's positive, but she kind of has like a vivacious attitude about it.
Yeah, I think that defiance
she's committed to her impoverished lifestyle.
I think that defiance was interesting to me because something's wrong with that pregnancy, and she knows something's, she obviously knows she hasn't been impregnated by a normal human person and doesn't have a normal human baby growing inside her, and so there's something weirdly rebellious and defiant that I almost started to root for about, yeah, girl, you hit that bong again. Yeah, girl, you get fucked up again. Just stick it to whatever's inside of you right now. I think I started to sort of almost enjoy the terrible behavior because, like, you know, and she knows that the wrong thing is inside of her.
Well, let me close the loop on the Michigan discussion.
Yeah,
no, it's
let's
still
get back
open
to
because I
that.
have something else to say.
Obviously, yeah, we're told the movie takes place in Michigan pretty much exclusively through license plates. And I could tell, living in Michigan, we're a Michigan-produced show, in case you didn't know, that it wasn't actually Michigan because no one wears their license plates like Michigan, and the license plates had the wrong fonts on them, etc. Just minor stuff you wouldn't notice unless you lived here. And so I became interested in, like, you know, where did this movie come from? Because it's depicting, like, the worst society ever. And as a proud Michigander, I was offended.
It felt to me, so I did recognize certain things because I grew up on the other side of the tracks from you guys in, like, the kind of shitty, grungy part of Monroe, and it didn't even feel like that. Like, there were Detroit elements as well. Like, the bowling alley they go to is like sort of a hipster thing that's sort of like very like mixed race sort of hipster bowling alley that I felt like was reminiscent of what I would see in Detroit at, like, the, you know, the Magic Stick bowling alley, whatever the fuck that's called.
Well, I just disagree with all of you because I didn't know this was filmed in Ontario, Michigan, whatever. I loved this movie 80% because I was like, I know people like this, and they talked like we do. And I literally know people like this, and, like, I feel like I've been to I've been to, like, a party like that in, like, a fucking warehouse where there's, like, barrel fires and stuff, you know? And, like, this Lou woman lives in a trailer out sort of in the middle of nowhere, you know?
That she inherited from her dad because he was in Vietnam.
Right. I know people who live in places like that, and, like, I've been to places like that, and it's snowy, and it's winter throughout this whole movie, and it's gray, and I don't know. I really appreciated the setting of it.
I strongly agree with all of that. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in Sudbury, Ontario, which is where it was shot. I mean, you can represent different locations in all kinds of other locations that aren't that location, and the license plate is a minor detail to me. I mean, the thing that really stuck with me more than anything else, and a lot of things you just said, and even that Steve just said as well, were like, oh yeah, that's stuff I know, but more than anything, the dialogue just rang true.
Yes.
Almost every line. It's like, I've heard
yes.
women who are kind of, I don't know, there's something about women in Michigan or the Midwest where you develop a special toughness, and there was a toughness to those conversations that was masking deeper pain or a deeper kind of hurt, and they were having these very sort of tough conversations that I feel like I heard especially women have.
Yes.
What you're saying is true, but also we have to keep in mind this movie is a black comedy.
Yeah.
Like, it is trying to represent this place, but, like, we're not meant to take the dialogue seriously or the setting seriously. It feels almost to me like this movie is set in a sort of post-apocalyptic wasteland. Like,
yeah.
It feels like there's, like,
Michigan.
So, well, yeah, that's
exactly.
my
Like,
issue.
it feels like there's, like, something outside of the narrative that set the bar for, like, here's, like, a different version of Midwestern life that is removed somewhat from what we experience now.
I disagree.
I think
it was total reality.
And the dialogue was very, like, Diablo Cody. At least in the beginning, it felt like every line was just sort of like a ridiculous sort of like pun. Like I don't know, like a woman refers to Natasha Lyonne's breasts as breastises. You know, like, it's just like there's lots of, like, weird little shit thrown in.
I disagree strongly.
I've been around so many, like, drunk high ladies in the UP that are just talking exactly like that. It's like, shit, man.
But that woman is the one.
The frequency with which people called each other man was another thing where I was just like,
where women call each other man?
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I was offended because they went out of their way to say it was in Michigan when they could have just not put the fake license plates on the cars, and it could have taken place anywhere. The director, I read, had the actors, you know, watching documentaries on Appalachia, which is kind of like what you think of when you think of people who are this poor were living this.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And it could have been anywhere, but they went out of their way to say it's Michigan, as if it was a comment on Michigan. And none of the people who made this movie are from Michigan, and so living in Michigan,
it's
exploitative. I don't want to see my state portrayed this way.
One film that this brought to mind was Patrick. We saw this together, The Alchemist Cookbook.
Yeah.
Which is made by a Grand Rapids filmmaker set in Michigan, but it's set way out in the woods and who knows where in a trailer. I even felt like that movie was like, that's not representative of... That's like if somebody who lives in Detroit, like, decides to leave it, goes off and does something crazy in the woods. This movie had a similar vibe, but I didn't feel like the people who made the film, like, understood what Michigan is like at all.
I just feel like maybe you guys are confused. I mean, there's a lot of Michigan that is like that. And there's a whole lot of people who live in trailers in rural Michigan. I mean, I don't know if you've read any Bonnie Jo Campbell, but like, especially the west side of the state, when you get really rural, up, like, not on the lake, obviously, but like, I mean, this is a huge, like, meth and opiate place.
Oh no, trust me.
And like,
I have opiate addiction in my family. I have been in trailer parks multiple times. But I didn't feel like the filmmakers and the actors like really like had a connection to that.
The movie
that is not a problem for me though, because it all worked. Like I enjoyed it. The movie was
originally going to take place in the desert. I read it was going to take place in like Joshua Tree area, and then they decided they were going to make it in Canada, and so they made it in this town in Canada that's like above Lake Huron. And I guess maybe because they were getting like subsidies from the Canadian government, they weren't allowed to say this is Canada and it looks like shit. So they're like, well, Michigan can look like shit. Sure, no one will question it.
All this is to say, I love the aesthetic of this movie, that it's like set in the grungiest, dirtiest place possible. And it is a dirty movie that made me feel sick for being a person having a body. And that's a specific thing for me that I kind of enjoy, like a David Cronenberg level, like body horror. Watching this thing, everything about it made me feel ill.
Yeah, I mean, strongly agree with all that. But I mean, I strongly disagree with who said it was exploitative. Was that you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. I strongly disagree that it's exploitative because, I mean, no matter where these people come from, they still, in my mind at least, captured, very honestly, what life is like for a huge part of Michigan in a way that was not, like, trying to poke fun.
No, it's played for... I feel like it's played for black comedy. I feel like there are like a few touching moments, but I feel for the most part they're exaggerating poverty. They're not portraying poverty honestly. I mean, look at
can you give me an example of that? Yeah.
Look at Natasha Lyonne's apartment. I mean, not her apartment, her trailer. She's got like a suicide poster. Like she's clearly a hipster and like has this like, it's like trashy but also like luxurious. Like she's got all of her sort of like hipster paraphernalia. She has a fucking Black Dice record in her record collection.
Okay,
it's like I can't imagine that kind of person would live in a trailer in the middle of nowhere in Michigan.
So I want to throw those examples out because Suicide and Dead Moon are both on the soundtrack and their posters are both in the trailer, and I felt like those were some kind of hipster nods that I'll give a pass. But can you give me some other example of how they were mocking this culture? Because, I mean, even that example that you give, I don't feel is necessarily mocking these people.
It's the sense that I feel like everything was played... I mean, it's clearly played for comedy.
It's a black comedy, but I don't think at the expense of, like, this lifestyle or that poverty or that desolation.
I don't know. I don't know. How comedic can you be about that kind of situation, especially if you don't come from that situation? And I don't get the feeling that the director did.
I feel like... I love this movie. Like, I feel like it's... The level of comedy is exactly where it needs to be. The level of humor is exactly where it needs to be. It is a movie, like, it reminds me of, John Waters. Like, Pink Flamingos, Desperate Living, where you're dealing with, like, people in trailers who decide that they want to break out of, like, poverty and be exceptional in some sort of way. But I don't feel like this movie accurately portrayed life in rural Michigan in any sort of way. Like I didn't recognize these settings.
I agree with what you said about the comedy being at the exact right level, but I feel like the exact right level is where it was still respecting those people. Natasha Lyonne's character, as I already said, I feel like I identified with her and appreciated that character. Even Chloë Sevigny's character, I appreciated quite a lot. The comedy never stooped to the level of making fun of those people.
Okay, that's perfect. I do agree with that.
Well, I think that I'd like to say a little bit more about the plot of this and how it moves forward, because after Lou, so Lou played by Natasha Lyonne and Chloë Sevigny, who plays Sadie, are at this party. They're party girls, whatever. And so immediately Lou starts displaying signs of an unusual pregnancy. And as we've said, she denies it. And basically the first half of the movie is sort of her continuing to party and Sadie kind of tempering her, but not really. Weird things happen,
It's a light touch.
Her belly, she puts her belly up against the microwave. There's electric sparks. She keeps.
And then the microwave explodes.
The microwave explodes.
There's smoke everywhere, which is amazing.
Which,
was that a microwave? We were uncertain if it was a microwave.
Also,
or a
if
TV.
you've had a microwave, though, they do that all the time. So
no, it was totally a microwave. Yeah,
my microwave was never.
She was
sparked.
cooking corn dogs in the microwave.
Yeah, and she was hammered. So whatever.
Another great
We've all been there.
touch. Another great touch.
And there's some kind of just scenes that sort of emphasize just kind of setting up the characters, which I appreciated. I like that. Scenes of them driving around rural, quote unquote, Michigan.
In any other movie, it would be a painfully slow burn, but because those actors are so good, the characters are so interesting and funny, and the dialogue is so good, I was totally in.
She Natasha Lyonne works part-time. It seems like she works whenever she is able to work, whenever she's not totally fucked up.
Literally one time in the entire movie.
In one time in the entire movie at a motel, cleaning. And I like that detail as well, that she's got a job that is flexible enough that you understand when she gets there, her boss is snorting coke on a washing machine when she comes in. It's okay, she can work whenever she wants to.
Yeah, she's fucked up the whole movie, but there's no one in this movie who isn't fucked up the whole movie, really.
Right. No, everybody's fucked up, and also
it doesn't feel like these people are. It doesn't feel
she's
like they're
also
living
a
on the
Marine. She has military experience too.
I was confused about that, but
I was confused, but I think what I've read is most people in this movie are you're supposed to read it as they're military vets.
Well, there's a scene where she says "Oh, training, that shit ain't for me" or something. I don't know, whatever. But what I was gonna say is none of the people in this movie seem like they're living on the fringes of their society.
They have plenty of friends and people to give them rides and people to bring them food. They seem to have a perfectly functional life.
Not
really
functional, but desolate.
Yeah, true. Still. I mean, it's terrible life, but not once do you see someone who has their shit together looking down on anybody.
Nor do you ever see anyone really struggling. At the worst point, anytime someone's hungry, someone calls them and it's hey, do you need cigarettes and donuts? Yeah. I'm coming to get you, which I get the impression that people who live like that have that sort of society together.
Bottom feeders bonding is this movie.
Right.
Which is I love it because it's played for humor, but also with empathy. It's
I didn't think this movie was funny.
There was a point in this movie, it is a deeply upsetting movie. Every element of it is gross and just sort of too recognizable for me. But there was a moment where I started laughing.
There were there are definitely some chuckles in the movie. It's I would call it a black comedy, but I think, and this crystallizes my point further, I think there's no jokes in the movie that the characters don't get. There's humor, but it's between the characters.
That's a good
stuff
point,
they laugh at to each other.
Yeah, the characters are funny. The situations, the circumstances are not funny. And we should mention there's some subplots that involve, we touched briefly on the kind of opioid epidemic. We have these just general burnouts, but then there's something darker going on with the drug scene. There was a human trafficking subplot, apparently.
Yeah, and there's a weird drug that everyone takes, Natasha Lyonne gets this drug from a drug dealer, but then when she goes to the hotel, her boss has the same drug and she's giving it to her son to help with his ADD or something.
Yeah.
Well, there seems to be, so this is, this movie is really centered on the drug scene, and you get the impression that these people are all involved with these drug dealers, right? And they have this mysterious new drug that's going to be a cheap high, but they're not sure how to cut it yet. And the first element, I think, of real horror is introduced is when you see a disfigured woman.
Oh, God, yeah.
who is sort of being kept as a slave, working for these two drug dealers.
Yeah, that was really hard to watch.
And she seems to crave more of this drug, and they tell her not to take it, and her face is just completely disfigured, and
she's seen entirely from behind for a bit, and then there's this horrifying
like
reveal where she
and
turns her face
so
around.
that's your first impression, that there's this hard drug that they're not sure how to deal with, that people are that they're giving to people, that they're becoming addicted to, that it's having terrible side effects.
Oddly enough, early on in the movie, I actually liked the drug dealer character, Gabriel.
I liked him throughout the movie.
Because
too. Well, he was
one
hot,
of the
that
only
helps.
guys. He was one of the only guys who
Gabriel?
could,
The guy who was lifting weights?
yeah.
You guys liked him?
I liked him because he
he
was
was
the only
interesting.
he was the only person in the movie who could put a sentence together.
He was fucked up.
He seemed smart.
I agree with Chris, and also
He
like
wasn't
he was very attractive.
He wasn't fucked up. That's the point, right, Chris? He wasn't. You never
Yeah.
saw him.
No,
take
I
a
mean,
drink,
he was a
do
fucked
anything.
up person.
Like early on
He's
in
a
the
fucked up
movie,
person, but he's not fucked. He's not taking the drugs.
No, he's not taking drugs,
He's the
but he's
only
like-
sober person in this movie.
He was a terrible person.
early
though.
on in the movie, Lou and Chloë Sevigny were just hard to watch and hard to listen to, and I was like, "Oh God, I can't do this." And
You
then
don't know people like that?
No,
I don't associate with them for a reason.
That's so interesting.
I know a lot of people like that. I associate with fucked up people. That's kind of my MO. But I did have a hard time in the first 30 minutes of this movie, seeing those two characters interact.
Well, when do you guys feel like this movie really picks up? When were you? I mean, I was sitting down riveted from the beginning, but where do you feel like you got the impression I don't know. What do you feel like is the turning point?
Definitely, I know. I have a distinct answer
Good,
to that
tell
question.
us.
It's when she's sitting on the floor, she's fucked up, she gets out a kitchen knife, slices off the tip of her fucking
God damn that scene.
stocking,
Yeah,
rolls
that was-
back her fishnet stocking. There's a
Just
huge blister on her foot
KY
that we've
jelly
never
just
seen
pours
before.
out of her foot.
Spoiler alert, you're jumping ahead. We'll get to that in a minute. No, there's a huge blister on the bottom of her foot, and she used the kitchen knife. Oh, she used a cigarette lighter to heat up the kitchen knife, and then she just lances this huge blister on her foot. It's disgusting, and I felt like I just literally just cringed, had this permanent ooh on my face for the 30 40 minutes, whatever comes after
late.
that.
That's late in the movie.
It is
'cause
pretty
Her
late.
pregnancy kind of slowly develops, and then it really develops, and then the movie's over. You're waiting the whole movie to see, what kind of baby is she gonna have, and then you find out, and the movie's over. And until that point, very slow boil. It actually kind of reminded me of Manchester by the Sea,
What? Jesus.
I
fuck are
actually
you
can
talking
kind
about?
of see that.
because it was just this bitter winter and these miserable people,
And they all have the same
Great
accent.
Walking around
performances,
talking.
great performances.
Best
Just
comparison we've had on this podcast.
That's pretty good. That's
sitting
pretty
around. And so nothing happened. So really, the point for me where I became interested is just at whatever point I started to actually appreciate Lou as a character, which was, I don't know, maybe halfway between the beginning of the movie and when she cuts her foot.
Well,
Now
her
it happens.
her
Oh, and then
arc
she
is,
wraps it in toilet paper. We should also note that she bandages it in toilet paper.
Well, yeah, because that's what she has available.
I know, but it's just the whole scene is just so. I was just
It's all gross.
grossest thing I've seen.
she becomes in
a while.
Her arc is so interesting because she commits to being fucked up. That's her journey as a character. It's
And that's why she's likable.
I know, right?
Right.
That's I've never seen that before.
No,
Well, Chris, I'd love for you to succinctly explain Lorna, because I had some trouble understanding her relation, because she was the government fucked me.
Lorna is a older woman who shows up kind of early on in the film, but you don't see much of her. She is
Meg Tilly.
Yeah, she is first seen at a gas station looking at missing women posters, so you think that she may be the mother of one of these girls, perhaps the girl with the disfigured face, someone who is involved in the human trafficking subplot. But then she finally runs into Lou at her motel job, and turns out she's actually kind of in town because she's following a psychic aura that she was in the service and had an unexplained encounter with something paranormal, and since then she's been psychically sensitive, and she's drawn to people who have this similar type of psychic aura about them, and Lou is one of those people.
Well, the only reason I wouldn't recommend this movie to someone is because this movie is basically Repo Man. Like, the plot is exactly the same.
Is someone having a baby in Repo Man? I haven't seen it.
There's not a baby happening, but, like, the alien, like, abduction sort of, like, weird, like, cult conspiracy thing is the plot of Repo Man. And it's also, like, structured exactly the same way.
Something I didn't like about this movie is that the director comes from a music video background, and he lets you fucking know it in this movie. I don't know why
he did like the Animal Collective, like, Oddsack thing.
I'm getting sick of these fucking music video directors who think they need to put music videos in all their fucking movies.
But that's everybody we love. It's, David Fincher's, Spike Jonze.
I strongly disagree. I mean, so you're talking about the dream hallucination sequence has, right?
There's a dream hallucination sequence, but that's not it. There's several scenes where it's just like people driving in cars, and there's like thumping bass, and it just goes on too long, and there's too many cuts. When they first get to the bowling alley, and there's like the kids having a pizza party, but it's all like slow-mo, goes on way too long.
I love that.
I actually love that too.
Especially cutting through. There's a cake that has a photo of the birthday child. Oh my god, that was my favorite
part about this, where they cut through the kid's face, through his eyes.
There's a photo of the birthday child printed on the cake, and then the knife runs through the kid's face. You see that in slow-mo. And there's a conversation going on in the background. It still serves a narrative purpose.
It doesn't really. I don't think that scene serves a narrative purpose. I was just like, I love that image.
It's a funny image. It would have been funny in like a Tim and Eric thing or something.
But not in the movie.
I didn't find it funny at all.
It didn't build to the...
I didn't think it was funny.
It didn't, like, build the movie's momentum at all. It was just like,
there's this recurring image there. So the bowling alley that Steve referenced earlier is called the Fun Zone. Yeah. And in the commercials for it, there's these horrifying looking Teletubby-like creatures who have masks that look almost like, what do you call that Japanese theater?
Kabuki?
Kabuki. I think that may not be quite what I'm looking for, but their faces look like Japanese masks.
They also look like blow-up dolls. They have like the open mouth.
Yeah,
like
they're horrifying, and they show up several times. And there's this incredible hallucination sequence that Natasha Lyonne has, where she's hallucinating about sort of having this baby as these Teletubby-like things are attending to her, and it's just amazing.
Well, I think that one of the things that I didn't like very much about this movie is the sort of like drug sequence element to it. Which I understood why they did it, because first of all the characters are wasted all the time. Yeah. But second of all, there's this mysterious drug that people are taking / being administered. But that was a little much for me. Like, there's always trippy fucking shit on TV that's like, what is this? And, there's a lot of flashbacks or like visions that Natasha Lyonne has where these like fuzzy creatures are like giving her vaginal exams or just dancing on TV. And there's this like sort of mysterious place, the Fun Zone, which is a bowling alley, but like no one would ever let these creatures like entertain children. That was a little much for me, but I did understand why they did it.
I mean, who's to say clowns entertain children? And in certain contexts, those are pretty horrifying.
Yeah, but this creature is like, it looks almost exactly like the thing from like Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Like in Twilight Zone, but like in Technicolor.
I got that reference.
It's like pretty ridiculous and weird. But like, there are people who just have the TV on all the time.
I know, but
that's who this movie is about.
Yeah,
it's like people live in trailers who like are constantly fed just information but don't process it and live life like totally irrationally because they're not connected to what's going on around them. And that's what I loved about this movie, is like, these are people who like are making bad choices constantly, and we can see where they're going wrong.
Some of the stoner TV stuff was fine. I liked how some of it kind of primed you for alien stuff. There's like talking heads on TV late at night, and they're like, alien blood, they're coming and they're checking our blood, blah, 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 blah. And it was kind of like They Live. I kind of like that. But then, some of it was just gratuitous, like, oh, I'm a music video director, here's some psychedelic imagery, and it's like, if I wanted to do drugs, I'd fucking go do drugs.
I really didn't feel that at all. I felt like the trippier stuff was mostly well-placed and well-used. You can get, and God bless David Lynch. I absolutely love David Lynch, but certainly some of his films get into these just tangents that go on for fucking way too long. And this, I felt like there were definitely some very Lynchian moments and Lynchian scenes, but they served a purpose for the large part.
I think one of the most horrifying parts of this movie is as Lou gets more and more pregnant. So she's inexplicably / very reasonably wearing a full fishnet bodysuit.
Yeah.
And as she gets more and more pregnant, her which happens very suddenly, her pregnant belly just shoves this fishnet bodysuit out, and it starts to stretch, and she's cutting various parts of it open, which I thought was a fantastic element.
There's a moment where she says, "Look at me."
Yeah, she's in this
holding her belly out.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's really unreasonably pregnant, right? I mean, no one is actually that pregnant. Yeah, she is huge.
And, we know as the movie goes on that this pregnancy has something wrong with it. I mean, she's peeling off skin from her face.
Oh, God.
Her nipples are bleeding. Her pregnant stomach is covered in pulsing veins. We are just waiting.
I'm not a woman, and I felt grossed out by this. I'm curious as to what your experience was like. So, the nipple bleeding, especially.
I just assume that's what pregnancy is going to be like. No, I'm just kidding. No, it seemed horrifying. I mean, it's wrong, and I think by the time the movie is nearing its climax, we're just waiting what possibly is going to come out of her, right? That's what we're all waiting for.
Yeah, and
we'll get to that pretty soon here, I think, right?
All those gross pregnancy details, though, they were surprisingly tasteful to me, because I mean, when you rattle off the list like that, and all those things that you just mentioned do happen, bleeding nipples and all that shit, but none of that is overdone. And it sounds funny because, I mean, this movie is still pretty over the top, but there's a bleeding nipples scene, but it's not, I don't know. It didn't strike me as gratuitous.
No, I mean, it fits within the context of what they're trying to do. It's definitely a body horror type of movie.
Yeah.
If you're going to go body horror, go all out.
But it's not all out, I guess I would say. I mean, it does, there's some really gross stuff, but it doesn't, I guess I would just say it doesn't overdo it. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe that. Meg Tilly, though. How did you guys feel about Meg Tilly? I thought she was great.
Fine.
Great.
Oscar winner, Meg Tilly.
I didn't recognize her at all.
Yeah.
It's the voice.
Me neither. I discovered that after the fact. But
good for a little bit of exposition.
She's fine.
I'm not sure.
I'm with Chris.
I'm not sure if she needed to be there. But
I just liked her kind of off-putting personality, but the way I felt like I gravitated to her as, I feel like this is the person in charge who we're going to trust to kind of guide Lou through this process.
Talking about Meg Tilly is overanalyzed in this movie. This is the modern version of Repo Man, where it really doesn't matter what happens in this movie.
Well, the movie is just it's really just kind of biding its time until we get to see the baby.
Yeah,
You guys want to
exactly.
talk about the baby?
Let's review it first.
We're going to have to review it first because we can only show you the baby in the spoiler room.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
So,
Chris.
That's our new spoiler room.
Steven.
Game.
Patrick. Steven, would you cue it, view it, screw it, have an alien baby, live in a trailer in rural Michigan, do a bunch of mysterious drugs, all of the above, none of the above, take your pick?
Well, I've done many mysterious drugs, and I've not lived in a trailer, but been pretty close. I would say cue it, not view it. I feel like if I was 15, I would have loved this movie. This would have been in the realm of Liquid Sky and Pink Flamingos, a cult film. I feel like it's trying too hard to achieve that level of dirty, gritty cinema, and it doesn't work. But it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
All right, Chris.
This is going to be a conversation we have to continue in the spoiler room. I'm going to say screw it because most of the movie is kind of boring. I didn't like the atmosphere. I didn't like I came to like the characters, but it was a hard watch. It was very depressing. And then at the end of all this poverty porn, at the end of all this human trafficking shit, the end of this flirting with the opioid epidemic, I'm like, what are they trying to say about all this? And then it basically kind of amounts to nothing more than a punchline at the end.
Well, to that I will say, I love Repo Man, which we should watch together sometime, which is a movie that, is about nothing, ultimately, in the end. And I feel like this movie is trying to do the same thing, where it's it's modern social commentary, but, ultimately, there's really nothing to take away from it.
I didn't see the commentary.
It's an observation and not a conclusion.
I thought that at the end of the day, they were just kind of playing all this stuff for comedy and for this like pseudo edgy punchline that we'll get to in the spoiler room about, and it didn't really justify all the poverty porn and all the like feelings that this movie gives you before it. I just didn't think it was a good effort, so I'd say screw it, fuck it.
Wow.
All right, Patrick.
Loved it. View it with prejudice.
Wow.
One of the strongest view it's I've had, maybe stronger than a Dark Song. I just loved it, top to bottom.
Let me just show you the Dark Song Blu-ray so you remember how you felt about this movie.
I remember.
Just look at it deeply.
I remember.
And you feel more strongly about this movie than Dark Song. Okay.
I do. I had a better time. I loved the fucking ending. It ended, and I was just like screaming. I had a very...
Screaming?
Okay, Elizabeth remembers. I had a very...
You were like Carrie Elwes at the end of Saw, just like, my family.
I was like...
He sawed off his leg.
I was like, my alien baby. Oh, actually, that's a spoiler. We should say that for the spoiler. No, but I mean, I really loved the depiction. It all felt very true to me. The depiction of the characters felt very true to me. I loved the psychedelic shit. I loved the alien shit. It felt like... it felt X-Files-y to me in a way. I loved the body horror. It was just everything. So it checked so many boxes for me. So many things that I enjoy.
The ending was super fun. I agree. The ending was super fun. The ending really got me excited.
It just felt incongruous to you.
I thought the rest of the movie was not good enough to, can't save the movie wasn't fun to watch. The ending was very fun to watch. Most of the movie wasn't fun to watch, and I thought it was going to pay off somehow, and it paid off with something that I kind of resented.
I just really disagree. I thought the whole thing was fun to watch. I was totally in from like minute 2.
Okay, Elizabeth,
what do you think?
This is my strongest view it.
Wow.
I loved it. I don't, Chris, I love you, but I don't know why you're talking about poverty porn. I mean, the fundamental thing that makes porn is that it's not something that you would typically see in daily life. This is shit that people live like this. I don't know why you keep calling it poverty porn. It's not like we're looking at them like, oh, wow, people live like this. People do live like this.
Because he has delusions about his state.
No, it's a heightened version of the lifestyle. Like, this is not a documentary.
I mean, we know Chloe can act. Natasha Lyonne is great.
No, you know what? If this were meant to be such a relatable thing, then the director wouldn't have had to have his cast watch documentaries about what's going on in like the poorest part of America in Appalachia.
Dude, but Appalachia is so closely related to here. People moved from Kentucky and moved from Appalachia to here. I mean, that's true. That's why they're that's why hillbilly culture. Hillbilly culture is a thing in Michigan, downriver. Like, have you been to downriver? This is a thing, and it comes from Appalachia.
I've been to downriver.
Like, Appalachia is an absolutely relevant reference point for what they were doing.
But it doesn't matter if it's relatable.
Come to my neighborhood sometime, and we'll reenact this movie.
Right. Like, I think it's whether or not you're saying that it's not torture porn or it's not poverty porn.
No, it's definitely torture porn.
Because
it's torture for sure.
I should live where I'm close enough to the circumstances. Well, I personally,
not that you should.
No, you're not saying
this movie's made for a broader
hold
audience.
on. Let's let Elizabeth finish her review.
I called Chris out, so I understand why he's
Chris,
defending
finish
himself.
your point. Actually, I want you to finish your point.
My point is that whether or not I should be more exposed to this because I live in Michigan, this movie is made for people all over the country, and I don't think it's trying to portray a typical thing or even something that most people can relate to. Yes, there's a population that lives like this, but I don't think they're represented much in the media. I don't think they're that visible to a lot of people in day-to-day life. That's why you had to have the cast watch the documentary on Appalachia to get to understand these people. Why didn't they say,
the mentality of this
Aunt
movie,
Susan,
So what is your point, though?
How did this come up?
I said that Chris calling this movie poverty porn didn't hit well with me.
Because
it's not poverty porn.
Something you see in daily life.
The filmmakers, I wrote down, I could pull back up my laptop, I wrote down a list of things I thought of while watching this movie, and most of them were directors. So I thought of John Waters and Harmony Korine and Greg Araki, and it's not poverty porn, it's taking a real life sort of horrible situation, terrible lifestyle, and finding a way to make comedy out of it while also being true to the source. That was the sense I got from this movie. Like, I don't think it's like exploiting poverty. It's trying to like accurately portray that lifestyle, but make it funny so that like people who live that sort of lifestyle can laugh at themselves.
I don't
just
agree
feel
with
like
that.
I don't usually call you guys out, but well, not you, Patrick, actually, but I feel like you guys are just being like super like this is life for many people, and this is how they live, and like it's not funny, and it's not like a voyeur, like let's look at how these people live through a lens. Like this is just a portrait of how many people live, just like looking at how rich people live,
and
or how
and they believe in aliens, and aliens end up inhabiting their.
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. All right, if it had just been a movie about these people who live like this and stuff, like I said, I got drawn to the characters, I was invested in them and their circumstances and stuff. If it was a movie that happened to take place with these people, great. But they actually turned the circumstances of their poverty into a ironic punchline at the end of the movie, which we're about to talk about in a second, and I thought that was tasteless. And I don't know if the director has any experience living in this kind of poverty, but I just thought he was handling the topic with kid gloves. Just like he was handling human trafficking and the opioid epidemic.
You guys are assuming
gloves.
too much. This movie is not trying to be about this lifestyle or scenario. This is a pure exploitation movie. Like,
I mean,
that's all it is.
agree.
Like, there's
Exploitative.
nothing to gain. You're not meant to get a message from this film.
Well,
I disagree. Okay, so a minute ago you said it wasn't exploitative, and you vacillated on that, and I'm very puzzled by if you think this is exploitative or
It's
not.
one of your favorite words.
It
But
is one of
I've
my
changed my
favorite
mind.
words.
After we've talked about it more, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is not... Like, it is an exploitation movie, but I feel like it's trying to, like, glom onto this particular milieu of sort of Michigan and poverty and that sort of thing, but like in like a Repo Man sort of way, where it's like, it's not really about anything. It's a punk rock movie. It's not trying to say anything or do anything revolutionary. It's just a movie where a lot of fucked up shit happens, and that's it.
I mean,
I think we're
I guess
thinking about it too
I can
much.
more or less agree with that, which leads me to the point I had to make about Chris's thing, which is I don't think it turns into a joke. We can get into this more in the spoiler room, but that ending doesn't really have anything to do with the circumstances of the characters. This is all it's setting. It's setting. Like that ending is not a joke on the characters. It's just a
The ending, I have thoughts. I think the ending is actually possibly more profound than one might realize.
Well,
But-
what I was going to say is that I think that you can set this movie in any time, in any place, and in any level of intelligence, wealth. You could do that, right? You can have a woman impregnated by we have seen this in our podcast. You can have the astronaut's wife. You can have...
Oh, I thought of that during this movie. I was like, this is what the
Rosemary's
astronaut's
Baby.
wife should have been.
It doesn't matter. They chose to set it in quote-unquote rural Michigan with people who are very poor. Fine. Doesn't matter. The outcome of the movie is not a commentary on the fact that these people are poor partiers. That's a setting that they chose, which we can argue about what that setting means until we're blue in the face, which I'm purple, so fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that choice almost elevates it more, because you could have another generic movie that's about upper middle class people who this happens to, and this chose to come up with some real people who felt real to me. You could do this story with any kind of characters. It doesn't matter that they're from rural Michigan.
Like I said, I agree, except they do kind of... It seems like there's a reason why they took the approach that they did. It was for the sake of a punchline. Also, I think if it's not completely arbitrary. Like, if they set this story, but it, like, took place during slavery or something, I think they would be assuming some sort of responsibility for the story they're trying to tell and why they're set in slavery. And...
So are you
Guys, this
arguing that
movie-
these characters should have been just sort of more milquetoast and more generic? Because I would have.
No,
I
I think
greatly
they were
prefer the
fine.
more
There's just-
specific characters and the more specific setting that they had.
just the ending, it's something about it rubbed me the wrong way. We're about to talk about it.
Well, can I just finish my review?
Please.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry, we're still mid Elizabeth's review.
I thought that the ending was one of the most delightful things that we have seen, simply because it gave me what I've been asking for from so many other movies that we've watched.
Yes.
Wow, that
And
is.
So,
I agree.
view it.
Wow,
it goes there. Like, it goes as far as you could imagine.
That is a great teaser for the spoiler room, is it not?
We're off to the spoiler room, so if you don't want to be spoiled, go home and watch Antibirth. If you do want to be spoiled,
review it.
If you're from Michigan, just tweet us.
So we're about to go to the spoiler room. If you want to watch Antibirth, go home and watch Antibirth. Otherwise, if you want to be spoiled, stick around.
Don't do it.
Stick around for Afterbirth.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The placenta.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're in the spoiler room. It's dark and dank. We've got our bongs, we've got our tequila, our menthol cigarettes, and we're gonna spoil everything about Antibirth. Chris is ripping it real hard right now.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this was a great movie. I'd say view
Can you
it.
pass it over?
Finally, you give it the viewing. You give it the rating it deserves.
Yeah. So, where were we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great.
This
Good
movie,
job.
guys, let's be honest. This movie was fucking great. I think this might be the best movie I've seen in 10 years.
The part with the TV, it was like static and shit.
Like, there's
wow.
I mean, like, I feel like they're like I don't know. The government is controlling us through the television.
Dude, this is a government movie.
The sense I get,
by
anyway.
Canada. This movie was made by Canada. Watch
Shit,
the
man.
credits.
Shit, man. Okay. All right. Funny. All right. Moving on.
Yeah.
All right, we're back.
Patrick's taking a
Patrick's
rip.
got to take a. Yeah, buddy.
Okay. Anyways, enough of that joke.
Okay.
A lot of shit happens in this movie, and then
Okay.
we get to the comics.
Look,
Elizabeth,
let
sum
me
it up.
concisely paint it. Lou is more pregnant than anyone has ever been pregnant before.
Except maybe that woman in
Z for
Death.
Zygote.
Yeah, Z for Zygote.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Great
But
point.
she's almost that pregnant.
Almost that pregnant.
Halfway there.
Lorna and she go back to her trailer, and she's like, "Fuck, water bursts. She's gonna birth a baby." And
Water breaks, I feel like, is
Water
generally
breaks.
the term.
And side note, what's really important to know is that she has been injected with this mysterious drug as a test subject. And inexplicably, this has gotten her very pregnant.
Yeah, and she learns this when X shows up.
Yeah. He's like Mr. Well, we say that because he's black and a government informant of some type.
Yeah, and he's been like seen a few times during
He was
the film.
creeping in on like people fucking in a car for a while, and was like,
Yeah.
"Is that gonna lead to anything?" And it didn't seem like it was going to until.
But it turns
very
out
end.
he's CIA man.
Yeah. So she's been injected with this drug. She's super pregnant, and there's like the two dealers who are trying to sort of cut this drug and distribute it to people are like approaching her house dressed as the SWAT team with machine guns. Fine. So she's at home. Lorna's helping her, and she births the Fluke Man. Basically,
It's
Like Creature from the Black
The
Lagoon.
head of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, alien monster head out of there.
Just a head.
just a head with some
with, like,
tendrils.
Yeah. Tendrils that were never used to. I
adult
love
size,
that. I
though.
love
Like,
that.
not a
Yep.
baby. It's a full adult
Full adult head.
size.
It has eyes, it has a nose, it has a mouth that's going.
She gives head essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So she births it. Lorna weirdly is like, Lou, look what you've created. This is beautiful.
She loves it. She's a hippie.
She's a hippie. Lou's kind of like, good. Glad that's over.
They put the thing in a chamber with like gas.
Well, they-
keep it
I love
alive.
Lou's whole reaction through
She's
this
like,
entire
good. I'm
climax.
glad
She's
it's
like,
gone.
great.
We've missed
She's
the
completely
we've missed the
unmoved.
broad strokes of the friendship between Chloe and Natasha's characters too, because like there's a lot of conflict that happens before this. But
Yeah.
we're
Doesn't
not
matter. Watch
we're not
the
going to go
movie,
back to
or
it. Watch the
don't.
movie, like you.
But, you know, the real climax happens when these two drug dealers who are dressed as the SWAT team approach the house.
Oh, that's when I climaxed, like hardcore.
They bust inside. Basically, I mean, what's the interpretation for you guys on this? Is this drug a government conspiracy? Yes or no?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. This movie's about...
Why is that a question?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I feel like ultimately it doesn't matter whether or not it's a government conspiracy. It's about Natasha Lyonne's character and her mindset and like what is real in her life. Like, I feel like this is a story of a woman who is abused and she's trying to find answers once she becomes aware enough to understand that she's been abused to what's happened to her. And I feel like the government conspiracy angle is just sort of like meant to be kind of comical.
I like it better if it's not a government conspiracy. Like, it obviously seems like a government conspiracy, but what if this the guy Isaac, who's the black guy who is like adopting, who's like behind pulling the strings, what if he's just like a hippie UFO enthusiast guy, and this is like a side project?
Great premise.
That's cool. So, I mean, we don't really know if it's government or not. It seems like it is, but
it definitely seems like it is, and I definitely like it better as a government conspiracy. Okay. I mean, I keep referencing X-Files actually almost as much as Steve has been referencing Repo Man. Yeah. But I mean, that was what I enjoyed about this. Was it was the government is secretly testing its drugs on
that's
the rural poor.
That's a tentative tie at best, because if you're gonna draw the government into any movie, you need to make these connections clear, in my opinion.
They were made clear, but I think that's why Lorna's character is relevant, because you talked about how she was in the military.
You guys are taking this way too seriously.
Okay, whatever.
It doesn't matter. We're discussing it.
I've been listening, and it's entertaining. I'm just saying,
matter.
Lighten up. Like, this movie does not have a big message.
No, it's not about if it has a message. We're talking about if the government conspiracy angle is meant to be taken seriously.
I think what really matters is when one of the SWAT team dudes busts into the trailer, attacks Lou, and she's like drunk, wasted, stoned, as always, and she's like, get away from me. Then, out of her vag, shoots the rest of the alien body.
So, feet first, like an entire human body comes out of her,
deflates her flesh.
My question about this movie is
very Z is for zygote. Actually,
we end on the alien body carrying the head as someone else comes into the room. Is that her? Like, does she become the alien because it's been birthed from her? Is her personality in that thing?
Who knows?
I feel like she's like transcended into a new like form.
Steve, you're taking this too seriously.
Imagine if like the alien just picks up the bong. And it's just like...
Oh, that would have been the perfect ending. That would have been it. Yeah.
No, the perfect ending is the shot of the alien holding the head, and then it cuts to the title, Antibirth.
I would love... No, Elizabeth is on point, because I thought, like I watched the ending twice, because I was like, I feel like there's more meant to be read into this. Like, in the screenwriter's mind, not necessarily meant to be interpreted by the viewer. And I was like, her life is sucked out of her. Her body shrivels up. And I feel like this movie is about a character that needs to grow and transcend into something more like mature or something else. And I do actually feel like the intent is like the alien is her.
I hope so. That would be interesting.
I don't.
And, like,
I
she's
love
bad
the ending exactly as it was, right on the surface level.
All right. Well,
it is a great ending. Like, regardless of reading anything into it, it's like, fuck. Like, there's a fucking alien here now in place of her.
Well, here's the part that pissed me off, and we kind of glossed over it here. But so she has the alien head, and Lorna's like, "Oh, what a beautiful baby." The G-men show up. This guy Isaac is like, "Oh yes, finally, our drug has worked. You can make a new race. You can go to outer space. I've been there. It's beautiful," or something.
Yeah, it's like so crazy.
But basically, the punchline is that they've been trying to create these alien babies, but they have been unsuccessful because they come from a toxic home world, and only this woman who's been doing drugs and eating junk food the entire movie.
She has a toxic enough womb.
Yes. Yeah. The years of your abuse have provided the perfect level of toxins for this conception. Like, that's one of my favorite lines in film history.
It was
a great twist.
It was funny. It was a good ending, but then I'm like, wait a minute. Is this the justification for all of this shit that I've just watched about, like, what's going on in this meth town?
Did you give it a screw it, Chris?
Yeah, I gave it a screw it. And so I just thought it was like kind of a crass way to bring all those threads together. I'm like, you're showing me all this human trafficking, opioid, poverty shit, and it's for that? Is that why?
You know what?
I felt fine totally because I didn't take it seriously.
Wait, Patrick was about to agree with me.
I totally appreciate that. You're right. And I did laugh in that moment, and I was laughing at the expense of the characters.
Yeah.
So you're all right, but I don't change my fucking
That's fine.
rating. It's
I don't
still
expect
View
you
It
to.
with Prejudice.
It's just
But I do
fucking-
totally appreciate your criticism of this movie more now.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it has like a John Waters mentality where like sometimes you're going to laugh at the characters and sometimes you're going to laugh with them, but ultimately you're laughing at the absurdity of human existence in its most desperate moments. And I love that about this movie.
Because by then I cared enough. I was like, okay, I have sympathy for these people. I care about these characters. And I was like, oh, was that really all just for this like bro, edgy, like, oh, she had the toxic womb because she just ate too much donuts and did too much drugs while she was pregnant. What if someone did so many drugs while they were pregnant that they could only raise an alien baby from a toxic planet? I was like, all right. I mean, whatever. Still, the ending was about the best part of the movie for me, but I thought it kind of soiled what had come before it.
Well, we had a lot of disagreements about this movie, but I think we can all agree on the fact that we love seeing a full-fledged alien come out of a person. I mean, we've been waiting for that for a long time.
Really satisfying conclusion, and just seeing Chloe and Natasha just being
Great to
best
see them
friends
again.
on screen.
Good to see them.
Adorable.
I
Love
can't-
it. So charming.
Wonderful.
Elizabeth, it's like you said a couple of weeks ago. One of your favorite things is a woman impregnated by something that's not a human.
That's true. This is a great joy in horror movie life, in my opinion. Chris, what are we watching next? Is there going to be a woman impregnated by a non-human object?
I don't know. I never look up the synopses on these movies before I watch them. That's part of the joy for
Well,
me.
maybe we can deduce from the movie title.
Archivo 253, 253, okay? But I think it's a Spanish movie.
Ooh,
Archivo.
Hey, we liked Rec 4.
Yeah, you know what?
I didn't.
Well, you thought it was fine.
I refuse to believe
No.
that foreign films can be as bad American films.
I'm always curious. I mean, like I think I love Korean horror. There's a lot of great stuff coming out of there. So yeah, I'm down.
So we're going to be going to Spain or Mexico or somewhere in Latin America, and we're going to see what's in the old Archivo.
Ladies
Look,
and gentlemen,
guys,
please.
we don't know
Definitely
where the
Archivo.
fuck we're going next
We don't know
week.
where we're going. We're
There's,
like,
well, look, there's one thing we do know. There's going to be subtitles.
there's going to be some... I hope.
Which has historically proven to be a bit of a problem for some of the people on this podcast, but I'm feeling good about it.
If there's not subtitles, we have to watch it anyway.
It's very
So,
true.
we're going to have to get some Rosetta Stone. We're going to Spain or somewhere. Who knows? It'll be like Carmen San Diego. You'll find out when we get there. But in the meantime, if you miss us, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and definitely our Instagram. We're on there, AmonCast, EHMONcast, at all those platforms. And you can send us a letter, you can leave us a comment, leave us a review, like, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah.
Chris, what if you wanted to not send us a letter or like or follow or share or subscribe, but troll us on one of those platforms, or all of them, perhaps?
Maybe we'll troll you back.
Okay.
With the fury of has never been seen before on the internet.
With the fury of
Fire and
1,000
fury.
pregnant women.
Fire and fury. Until then, for every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick. Hello, Zep. Done.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm Steven.
Goodbye, everybody.